There was 3 fellas that went out on a hunting trip. They were best friends, and they went out every year to this isolated cabin in the woods. This one particular year, they had decided they were going to hunt werewolf. Now, the reason that they thought there was a werewolf in the area is because of all the livestock that had been getting killed. And it just so happens that the owner of the farm was a friend of theirs, and he begged them. He's like, please go out and kill this thing. It's getting out of hand. It's costing me money. So these 3 fellas, they head out to the woods, set up camp at their isolated cabin and wait for the full moon. The first 2 nights, nothing happens, so they start thinking maybe it's not out there. On the 3rd night, they hear some commotion outside. They look out the window and they see this massive wolf, grey wolf, all snarled up with a deer that it has killed. It's eating the deer, but every time the wolf lifts its head up, it's like growling and howling at the moon. And then the wolf drops the deer, takes off and runs into the forest. These guys, being hunters, they grab their guns and they follow the wolf. The wolf leads them through the forest for a little while, and then it stops and it turns around and it snarls at them. So one of the hunters raises his gun and shoots the wolf. The wolf lets out this big howl and then it runs off into the forest. They go back to the cabin and they think, well, we may have wounded the beast, but we didn't get it. So we're probably going to have to go out tomorrow and finish the job. In the morning after, of course, not sleeping at all, they go out and they start tracking the wolf. They find where the wolf has been staying in this little den in the cave. Then they go over to the opening of the cave and they start yelling and making tons of noise, thinking that if the wolf is in there, it's going to come out and attack them. Well, after about 30 minutes of them yelling and screaming, they hear a big crash from inside the cave. And then right behind them, they hear heavy footsteps coming out of the cave. They turn around and they see this huge grey wolf coming towards them. And of course, the hunter, he raises up his gun and blows the wolf's head off. As the blood is squirting everywhere and the wolf is collapsing to the ground, the hunter goes over and starts to frisk the wolf to make sure that it's dead. He reaches down and starts flipping up its paws, looking underneath its legs and tail. As he's doing this, the other 2 hunters are starting to get freaked out. One of them even said, "Dude, let's just get out of here. Who cares if it's a werewolf? We got ourselves into enough trouble already by coming out here to begin with." But the guy's like, "No, we've come too far. I want to make sure that this thing is dead." As he's reaching under the tail of the wolf, he feels something hard. He reaches in between the pads of the wolf's feet and pulls out a silver dollar. He looks at the other hunters and he says, "Holy crap, guys, we just killed a werewolf." They all start freaking out and running through the forest in different directions. They can hear the werewolf behind them, crashing through the trees as it gives chase. They run as fast as they can until finally they reach their car. They jump in the car and they speed out of there. Once they get back to civilization, they tell everyone what had happened, and everybody thinks that they're crazy, so they go home. But at night, when they're lying in their beds, they hear this big crash and they see this big grey wolf standing at the foot of their bed, growling and snarling at them, and they all scream and pull the covers over their heads. So the next day, they decide they're re-gone now, go back to the cabin and they're re-gone now, confront the werewolf once and for all. When they get to the cabin, they find this big pile of bones outside, and they think, "Oh my God, it's the werewolf. It's come to finish us off." But then as they look closer, they realize that it's just a dog. Somebody had left a dog skeleton on their porch, but that doesn't ease their fears. They still think that the werewolf is out there, and as night falls, they start hearing all sorts of commotion outside. They hear a knock on the door. They look out the window and they see a big grey wolf standing out there, but it's also wearing clothes. It's wearing a trench coat. And then the wolf knocks on the door again and holds up a piece of paper. They open the door and the wolf hands the piece of paper to them and walks away. They look at the piece of paper and it says, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for food. Would you please go out and get me some groceries? I promise I'll pay you back." And underneath that, it's signed, "Your friendly neighborhood werewolf." The 3 hunters look at each other and they say, "Well, I guess that's the least we can do." So they go out and get the werewolf some groceries. When they come back to the cabin, they put the groceries down and they look at the window and they see the werewolf sitting at a table eating a bowl of cereal. Then the werewolf looks up and it says, "Hey, thanks for bringing the groceries. It's just me. You can call me Will." And the hunters are totally shocked. They're like, "You're a werewolf?" And Will says, "Yeah, I am, but don't worry. I'm a vegetarian werewolf. I don't eat human flesh. I only drink the blood of animals. And actually, I prefer the blood of pigs. It's a little bit thicker and it's got more iron in it. The hunters are totally flabbergasted. They're like, dude, we brought you groceries. Why don't you just eat regular food? And Will says, I can't. My body craves the blood of animals. It's a curse. And the hunters are like, dude, that sucks. And Will says, I know, but hey, at least I've got friends who care about me. Then he invites them in to watch TV and they all become best friends. And that's pretty cool. Pretty cool story. I like that one. That's a good one. You got anything else?